Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I have one of my dear friends, Brandon Schwab. Brandon is the founder and CEO of a $25 million real estate fund that focuses on one of the most lucrative rollouts in this sector. So what this means is that Brandon understands not only how to find and finance the best deals in real estate, but also how to create some of the most lucrative uses of this asset that you will ever see. I'm going to bring him on the show. He's going to tell us all the secret tips. You're going to want to hang into the end where he really wraps things up and helps us understand how to skip levels and give us some advice that he's learned from his long experience. But before we get into that, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thank you. It is awesome, dude. I have actually been following you since your first episode.
Awesome.
And this has been awesome. And to have the opportunity to hop on here is great, man. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Yeah, dude, it's so good to have you, and thank you. How fun is that to have some of your original fans now as some of your guests just talking about how they did it? So thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing
absolutely.
your light, with many of our other guests. And in true form, I think we can research and find out, your fund and all these different things, but not everybody is a fund manager right now, but maybe they want to be, or they're interested in real estate asset classes and they just needed somebody to say, hey man, like this is how it's done. So, before we get into all the cool stuff, and you're going to want to hang in there to the end to hear this stuff, where did it start for you? And I think, myself included, I'm very interested to hear, how did you ascend to this level, and what was that moment where it began?
Well, a thing I could tell you is how I first got into it was I was caught off guard. I mean, it is something that when I was about 2.5 years old, so my father passed. He was an Army OH-58 pilot, and he passed in early '84. And okay. It was a tough thing. All of us were exposed as a kid growing up, and we came up to Illinois when I was about 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And so my father's father was a very close person to me. He was a person that had a high opportunity to help teach me. He was the closest I ever had to him because he taught him, and where a person at the age of 2.5, you don't really have a clue who he is because you just can't think that far back. And it's a thing that I am able to hear awesome things on him, but his father was a great guy. And when I got exposed to the industry first, as he got older, like things happened. He had his first stroke when he was 84. Then he had his second when he was 85. And unfortunately, what kind of happened was the exposure to the healthcare industry today was the first time I ever got exposed to that. I was maybe 28, 30 years old at the time, and I didn't have a clue how they care for the elderly because I didn't have any exposure to it. So that's kind of how I got exposed to it the first time. It was actually a terrible experience, how they cared for the elderly, and the type of care that he got was terrible, Ryan. Yeah. And I honestly, so I don't know if I handled things properly, but I was there, and he had to have help, right? He had a pretty bad thing happen to him where he had to have help. So we pulled a pull cord button to take care of his accident. Yeah. And we just sat there and sat there. Like 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by, 10, 15, 20 minutes goes by. And I start getting angry because I don't get how there isn't people over here helping him, just booking over to help him. And I go, and his face is changing colors, Ryan, just so my heart was just tearing for him because he felt so bad and he couldn't control what happened in the exposure. And I went and I did the only thing that I thought I could, man. I went to go get help. And maybe I was a little charged up at that time because I don't know if I handled it properly. I exploded at those caregivers, and I did get them help. But when I was driving home that day, I felt really bad, and I was like, what's going to happen tomorrow or 2 days or 5 days? And then that inner gut feeling of I goofed up, man. I probably actually hurt him more than I helped him. And dude, that guilt was so bad that I didn't know how to process it. So I did what I could was just try to push it down deep as if it didn't ever happen. Well, fate has the opportunities where it comes back up, and it keeps on just coming up to surface. And about 7 years later, I was down in Florida, and I have been together with Kelly for 15 years. We have 2 kids, 15 and 8, and Kelly's dad plays the piano at the old folks home. Right. We would go down to Florida, which is an awesome place to go, particularly where I'm at is typically cold. So going down to Florida is great, but her dad plays 328 shows per year, Ryan, for $35. He did this to help other people. He did it to give to elders. Well,
is this in senior living communities as well?
Yes, he would go down to Florida, and he would go play his piano, and he would tell the same corny jokes over and over, Ryan. They were painful, but he figured out that if you do all these things, that people have an awesome time. Mm-hmm. So we would go down to Florida, and unfortunately down in Florida, they build them up compared to out. So they got 10 floors full of elderly. One of the biggest things that I saw from the first experience with our family was the odor was really bad. And
was this at the, sorry to cut you off, but was this at the odor was bad in the place where your grandfather, who basically raised you, that was in that place?
Well, I found out it was in each of them, and I found out it was kind of, it was a pretty common thing. Like I was pretty ignorant that I thought that if you're paying $5,000, $8,000 per month, that these places would be, they didn't have that odor, but both places did. The first place did, and then I would go down to Florida, and every time I would go into these buildings and get in to go up to the 8th floor, the 10th floor, the exposure of the thing that happened back before would all come back, and it hit me again. And then I began feeling how I did afterwards, that I was trying to like push that one down deep every time it'd come back up. And it got to a point that I was like, hey, Kelly, is there anything that I can do that I don't have to go? So I will cook, clean, things that I'm terrible at, but just so I don't have to go. And Kelly is about 110 pounds. She is able to give me this face, like, you have to go or else. And I don't know what that or else means. Pillow in the face. I don't know. So I just go. And thank God I did, because we pulled up to a house, and I've been doing this for 5 years, and I go down, this is July of 14, and we pull up to a house, Ryan. And this house had houses on each side. It was probably about a 3,000-foot house. It was down by Tampa, and he was playing at a house. And I said, Cal, text your dad. I've never heard of a house. I think we goofed up the address. Well, her dad pulled up, and we go into a house, and there's 5 people in there, right? And I kind of do one of these, like I have the arms crossed, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. Now, keep in mind, I've been investing now for 4 years full time. I opened up and hosted our own club for investors with about 100 to 110 people every 30 days that would come out. And then I would talk to all, and then I would teach people. I kind of felt like I had the investing field figured out. Well, I crossed my arms because I was feeling ignorant. I was feeling dumb that I haven't ever heard of this. Possibly anyone that's able to hear this is probably going, I haven't heard of this either.
Investing in senior communities?
I haven't ever heard of a 5-person house that cares for the elderly. I always thought if you think of a place to care for the elderly, it was always these huge places, 100, 200 plus beds, factory type feeling places. And I felt dumb because I haven't ever heard of. Well, apparently down in Florida, there's 1,800 of these, Ryan. In California, there's 2,800. Arizona, there's 3,000. Texas, there's 15,000. I had no clue. And I go back home by us, and there's 55. So I'm down in Florida, and I'm trying to figure out and just process, like, what is this? This is cool. A thing that happened, though, is this house was distinctly the opposite of everything I've ever seen. Typically, I get exposed with the odors, like the first thing that like hits you in the face, and you're like, "Oh, get me out of here." And then it's the atmosphere of like everyone asking you for help, because the people that are in there, they don't get good help, and they're just like, and that atmosphere just is so hard. I mean, like that, it's hard to pass a person that has to have help and don't help them. Like,
Right.
and I think that's part of being a kid that got exposed to a household that didn't have two people to teach you. I just had a heart for people, like overall. And that heart came through of like the big buildings. I'd have a hard time with that. So I'm in this house with 5 people and it didn't have the odor. There was 5 people. There was about 1 caregiver. And then there was this girl that just popped in halfway through. And I have my arms crossed. I'm trying to figure it out because I've never heard of this before. And the girl that came in halfway through, I said, hey, how much do these people pay to be here each month? Like $1,500 to $2,000? Oh, she furrowed her eyebrows just like this.
Yeah.
And goes, huh, and just kind of kept on walking. And I'm like, what was that? So I called her. The girl goes, Brandon, I thought you were joking. They begin at $5,200 a month. My brain was like 5 times 50, that's $26,000. I've never heard of a house that's 3,000 feet generating $26,000 of income.
So
my
the
brain,
light bulb moment. Yeah, you had the light bulb moment.
So my brain started spinning. And then I asked questions of like, what type of overhead could they possibly have? And then I began calculating, adding up caregivers and household payments, all these different things. And by the time I figured it out, I realized that the 23 homes I had, tenants in all of them, I was profiting maybe $200 or $300 a month each times 23. I had passive income of $5,400. I thought I was hot.
Yeah.
I had to figure it out. Like I was like, got it, guys, cool, let's go.
Yeah.
And then I walk into a 5-bed house and I ate a piece of like humbling experience. Because I realized that one house with 5 people outperformed my 23 houses 2 times a month.
Wow.
Clear $10,000 a month. And I said, I'm in the wrong business. Because I had the exposure for the heart of how goofed up the industry is, I felt like the experience to expose that God either like almost knew that I would take action to go fix it. Because he was that big of a person in my life that I was like, hey, I'm taking this back home. Really cool. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Wow, that's absolutely phenomenal. So here you were, your grandfather who had a massive influence in your upbringing, and then he's put into like assisted living, and nothing's happening, and there's different smells, and no one's giving support, and you're just like, this is not great. And then you have the contrast moment to say, and by the way, who wouldn't that infuriate? So no one would fault you to watch someone who raised you just get neglected. So that's understandable. And then you go to this other side where you're like, wait, I thought they were all that other experience. I didn't. And so you see how it's a professionally done well. And it appeals, like you said, you had a heart and you just wanted to help people. And then you see there's a business that's not only helping people, but also quite profitable. Maybe the profit per square foot, we'll say, I just made up that metric, but, is quite higher. So now you're saying, wow, I'm helping people. The profitability, this is really a lucrative use of asset classes, which I teased other people. So senior living is one of the most lucrative. And Brandon, we'll get into that in a minute. But so here you are, you find this thing in Florida and you're like, holy cow, I think I found my next thing. It not only did it appeal to your wallet, but it appealed to your heart. There was a purpose in you. There was something in you where this asset that you were acquiring also helped you to fulfill something deeper within yourself. So, and I think that matters a lot. So it unlocks some passion and things that truly lit you up. So, so here you are, you start asking questions, you're learning about overhead, and you're realizing, hey, real estate is okay, but if I do it like this, boy, am I ever going to be onto something. So where did it go from there?
Well, the thing that I did before I was able to take off from down in Florida, I became close with the person that was in charge of those homes. Apparently that portfolio had 7 different homes and the owner wasn't even that person. So a thing that I got is I probably took a day or two and I learned. I got taught how to do this thing from experts, people that have been doing it for years, that also had that heart. And it was great because I got taught that how to do it properly compared to quite a bit of how the other people in the industry are doing it, really just to earn dollars. And they taught me how to do it properly. And I came back home charged up, right? And I go back home in front of 100, 110 people at our annual or our 30-day club. And I say, hey, guys, I've got 23 homes, tenants in all of them. Who's interested? You could have heard a pin drop because they thought I was kidding. Yeah. And when I explained what I was doing, they literally thought I was crazy, Ryan. So what happened was I came back after hearing all this great information, man. I was convicted because I had this great piece of information. So I came back, and after having that info, I found our first house. It was on the MLS for 500 days. It was 4,800 feet on 3 acres. It was on the MLS for $500,000. So I offered 2 offers. I offered all cash owner carryback financing, $500,000 or $250 cash. He took $250 cash, and I proceeded to invest $550 into the house. Now, one of the things I didn't tell you, Ryan, bro, it's in a town of 832 people. So typically when people open up these homes, like they pick this great area. Well, I picked farmers. Yeah. And it wasn't that like I wanted to go to a town for 830 people. It's that I can't find a house that's 4,800 feet on the very first floor anywhere. They don't build them. Well, this guy was a financial planner that had a house that was 2,880, and he built a 2,000-foot office onto his house that you can get to from the outside. So guess who put them all together to connect them? And I opened up our first house, and it was crazy because like I got in really without any experience for healthcare. I just knew that I was angled to figure it out, and that I would figure out how to do it. I always love taking action first, and then I kind of figure it out. Well, I decided to call some church pastors because I thought church pastors would be a good place to begin to help have our house filled up. Well, I think this first church pastor probably felt bad for me. I think he was probably like, Brandon, you're probably not so good at this. Let me introduce you to a friend of theirs, their closest friend, who was in healthcare for 38 years. Female, great heart, a great person that I ended up partnering up with in 2015. A church pastor opened up that door. Anytime a church pastor asks you to do something, you follow through because it probably has some purpose to it. So just talking about this, man, I get the goosebumps every time because like I don't always talk on it anymore, but like it's cool because doors open. I partnered up with her, and Teresa really helped fill that piece. And we built a great company that was built on caring first, that heart first, because that's how I got taught down in Florida. And we grew. I mean, our first house was incredible. I mean, it did take me time to figure out what I was doing. I mean, I did buy our first house October of 2014. I got permits for the conditional permits in April of 2015. And then I opened the house September 5th, 2015. Okay. I put our first person in that day, right? And we just grew. And I filled it February of 17. And it's funny because I got into the business initially to earn passive income. I think everyone wants passive income because it gives you time to do whatever you feel like it. But I had this passive income goal of $10,000 per month so I could do other things, coach, travel, like things that I could have. Well, my first house, Ryan, we had 7 bedrooms total, right? 4 of them were for privates, and then 3 of them were huge rooms, so I put 2 people in there. The bedrooms for 2 people per room, I charged $5,000 per month per person. Times 2, it's 10. So 3 people or 3 bedrooms paying you $10,000 a month, it's $30,000. And then I had 4 bedrooms paying me $200 per day. So it was about $6,000 each month, right? Okay. Times 4, that's $24,000. So I had a total income for 4 years. I had a 98.3% occupancy. Wow. At $54,000 a month. My expenses were $28,000 to $30,000. It was cool down in Florida. They had 5 people per house, but I said, I don't have the healthcare pass that all these guys do. I felt like I needed to build it bigger so I could have the overhead dollars to pay good people, because I don't even tell you guys that I have any healthcare pass. So I have to hire great people.
Yes.
And that's how I opened, man. I was clearing 20 grand a month. And I said, hey, I'm going to take 10,000 per month to cover everything that I need, but I'm going to invest the other 10. And nice. I did that for years, since 2017 on. I invested 10 grand a month, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And fast forward to today, man, we're jamming. We've got 5 houses. We got 2 that are opening by April 1st, 2023. And I got 7.2 acres of land. And we have properties under contract. We have portfolios that are going to double and triple our entire portfolio literally overnight because of our fund. Yeah. Like, that's exciting. COVID was tough, right? I can't tell you that COVID wasn't easy for us, because it was hard. Yeah. We got through COVID, and it taught us some really crazy good things, but COVID also taught us that I need to buy a portfolio. And I had an experience, both good or bad, I don't know, but this experience cost me $85,000. Well, at that time, I've never paid $85,000 for something and didn't ever get anything in return.
Yeah. So if I can ask you a question before we go into that, because I'm curious about something, is so the joke is, hey, I bought a place with 800 in a town of 830 people, and everyone thought I was crazy. I wouldn't imagine why. So here you are, you found the right kind of setup that you needed. You bought it for $250, you invested $550. So now you're into it for $800,000. Just curious, and if I'm hearing you right, you held it for about 3 years. By the time you really stabilized everything, roughly what was the return on investment over 3 years?
Dude, it was crazy, because at this time, everyone in this club thought I was crazy. They're like, Brandon has gone crazy. I'm sorry. Yeah. He put 800 grand into a farmhouse. So we filled it in 2017, but I wanted to have a positive T12, trailing 12 for one full year. After I had that, I ordered in appraisal through Cushman and Wakefield. Yeah. And this guy came out to the house, and he was scratching his head, and he's like, I get it. On paper, you're earning a ton of money. And he is scratching his head but he's like, but it's a house. Yeah. And he, as the appraiser, had to use the highest and best possible use, right? And that's the income-based appraisal. So he took the industry average, was a cap rate of 8 to 10%. Okay. But he's going, Brandon, you're making 20 plus grand a month with a 10% factor for open beds. You're making a lot of money. And he discounted the cap rate to 13%, and it appraised for $1.8 million.
Wow. That's over 100% return in what, 3 years?
It was about 120%, like 40% per year. So let's just say our investors.
And real estate? That's unheard of, man. This is what I'm talking about, is that you know how to take these assets through senior living. And I hope people who are listening to this is saying, hey, you can, everybody, all these gurus are coming on, and there's nothing wrong with it. They're saying, yeah, buy real estate. They're not wrong. But what Brandon is saying is, yeah, do that for sure. But how, once that asset's in your possession, what Brandon is saying is, like, I took that route, and I was, making $5 grand a month off a whole bunch of properties and all this management and all this stuff. And then I was like, wait, why don't I just use it a little bit differently? The same assets, but I use them a little bit differently. Right. And now I've gone from $5 grand a month to 20 grand a month, but that was $5 grand on your whole portfolio, 20 grand off of one. And so you scaled up in 3 years. You more than you said 120, or I think it's about 120% or over 40% per year in real estate, which is phenomenal. And you're still getting cash flow. That was just the asset value. I mean, cash flow was factored in, but regardless, those are real numbers that finally a professional appraiser said, wait, and even he was perplexed. He was saying, how can it be worth this much? Oh, well, because Brandon used regular real estate, implemented senior living, and all of a sudden that real estate, the profit per square foot went to astronomical levels.
Yep.
And now we're in a really, really effective place. So I just wanted to highlight that for people around the world, is saying not only did Brandon do some wonderful things, but making money was one of them.
Yeah. Well, and a thing that anyone is able to do that is able to hear this is there are opportunities throughout the country where there are these big properties that people aren't buying. I mean, taxes are $4,000 or $5,000 per 30 days that people aren't going to buy. But that's the thing. If you go in because of this opportunity and learn because of this episode, you can go, oh, that guy was talking about that. Can I do something with that? Yeah. And a thing that I would tell you is take this as an opportunity for you to learn, but take it into the industry that you're in, because I'll guarantee you there are elderly there that are asking for help. Please help me. And to have the purpose of helping elderly, I don't know if there's anything out there that you can do that from a purpose point of view tops that.
Yeah.
And that's what you have. Take everything that you hear here. I mean, just to have the opportunity for us to talk here. Yeah. So I've heard every episode, and the type of people you have on, they're crazy talented. Like, dude, I kind of feel as if like I'm the entry guy, the guy that you call to have the opening, because like the type of people you have on here are crazy high. And I am honored just to have the opportunity to be part of it. But I figured that after I had the opportunity, I had to add a ton of content that could help people that are able to hear this, where they can go, hey man, there is 2 of these houses in our town. Could I do anything with it?
Yeah.
And that is a thing that people that are able to hear this call can take action today to help people.
That's right. And make money. And so on this show, you've heard every episode, and thank you for that. And I'm sure many of our fans and former guests who have contributed to this show very generously, you're certainly one of them. So thank you. You're very kind. You know, helping people is one of the things, and I talk about this, having had the joy of doing this for as long as I've had, patterns start to emerge. And one of those things for people who've made it, including yourself, is that they were obsessed with the impact over the income. They didn't neglect the income, but they were obsessed with the impact they were trying to make. And for you, that moment where you saw your grandfather not feel cared for, that moment that someone you cared about and was just treated the way that he was in living in the conditions that he did, and that shaped you. It was not a great experience, but we can honor those moments. And that moment gave you the power and the mental fortitude you need to see around corners, and you were able to see it. Not only what it shouldn't be, and any good entrepreneur says, there's got to be a better way. And that's what you did. And that is the seed of innovation, is to say, no, this can't be the best. You know, like there's got to be a better way to do this. And you did it while still fulfilling the impact you were trying to make.
Yeah. Well, the thing that is crazy, Ryan, is how do we live in the top country in the whole planet, but how we care for the elderly? The top we could offer them is 100 to 200 bed building that they get a caregiver to every 20 to 30 people.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's not right. Yep.
That's terrible. Like,
yeah, it's a crime for sure.
That is, but I feel like I can't picture how people haven't done anything on it to fix it. When I am able to dig into it, I'm just like, these people that are doing it, they earn so much money because they don't care. That heart piece has to be there.
It does.
And I said, so I'm earning $10,000 each month. That's fine. That covers everything. But every penny that I earn over that goes back in, goes back in for the impact to change. Because I feel that there's an opportunity here. I feel that I could have uncovered an opportunity to change an industry upside down. And truly be part of that change that checks things off for just purpose. The impact of being able to help elderly like that. Every time I even talking it, man, I've gotten chills 5 times just talking to you, because like these gives me opportunities to think like they have to have help, and they don't have anyone actively trying to help them, or a person that cares on them that isn't trying to earn first, but care first and figure out how to earn after you do things that are done properly. Because at the end of the day, you have to do what needs to be done properly first, and then figure out everything afterwards. You can't cut corners.
That's right.
And I just see too many people cut corners because they go, ooh, income's here, expenses are getting a tad bit fatter. The two of us were able to talk in this past evening, and then people that don't have the end in mind, they cut.
Yep.
And then the person that get hurt is the people that are in there.
That's right.
People that are getting the income or the exposure from that help that's cut. Because at the end of the day, can you care for 20 to 30 people? Could you change 20 or 30 people per hour? No. Or a thing that happens is you get the type of care that's like, hey, it's like, hold on. People don't like being told to hold on. That's bullshit. Come on.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you can go, if I can keep that from happening, if I can keep the elderly from getting hit, because that's a thing that happens. People only become into the industry to do care because they have great big hearts. They're great people. But if you put them in a position to fail, they can't handle that quantity of people. So you put them there to fail. They fail by hitting somebody because they get overwhelmed and they don't have the teaching of, so like, how do you handle if you have 20 people asking you for help? They just don't do that. But the owners aren't there. The owners are off and they've got 1,000 of them. It isn't how it ought to be done. And I said, hey, man, even if I don't earn anything over $10,000 per month, and if I change the industry, if I turn it upside down, I feel like good things will happen if you do things that are going to be how they ought to be done.
So
and
I just
that purpose, man.
Yeah, I love that.
Dude,
and
I'm getting amped right now just talking.
Yeah, I know you are. So am I. So, I want to highlight to the entrepreneurs that are listening to the show is that Brandon didn't create a new sector. He just did it better. So everybody is obsessed with like innovation and disruptive technology. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not the only place. It's not the only part on the field that you win that you can exist and score some points. And so Brandon just said, the industry just kind of sucks. It's not great operations. It's not well run. It's understaffed or overstaffed. I mean, it's kind of a mess. And so it was just this cash grab by people. You put someone in there who wants to do the right thing. And I would argue that there is an ROI of doing the right thing and maintaining your ethics. Not only does that massively help your reputation, your relationships, but it also helps your bottom line. And I would argue even your top line. So doing the right thing does start to show up. And then you, as a leader in your own company, that starts to percolate through your organization. And then you start to see other people doing the right thing. And pretty soon you got it. Your culture has now become a movement.
It's changed.
Now to draw contrast to that. So all of these wonderful things that you've done and you're changing the life and you're caring about people. I want to know about a time that it didn't work out for you, that even though you did everything right, because entrepreneurs are going to go through that. And I have a feeling being in business as long as you have, you might have a story for me. Was there ever a time that you were trying to do business, whether you're growing it or whatever it might be, where you did everything right and you still got roundhoused in the face?
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that.
I think I could talk on that for 8 hours.
We don't have 8 hours, but give me one example of maybe, you're trying to buy something and, the deal fell through. I mean, that everybody goes through that. Let's hear the war wounds, man.
Well, there's like hundreds of these. I mean, I take action first and then I kind of figure things out as I go. But I take action because I feel like people don't always take the action, and that causes opportunity that people don't get. There is a quote by a famous hockey player, actually up close to you, actually. Yeah. That if you will miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
The great one, Wayne Gretzky.
So Wayne Gretzky, I love that quote. But it tells me take action, and that's going to teach you plenty of things. So as I got bigger, I got out of kind of the operational piece, and I was figuring out the finance. I was doing takeout financing. I was talking to banks, and it was a pretty interesting exposure opportunity because I was learning what they were looking for. Right. And what I learned is they want numbers. In an ideal planet, they would like to see 100 to 200 in your portfolio. They don't care if they are 5 houses, 10 houses, or 20. They don't care. What they're looking to see is what's the total units that you have in your portfolio. So I said, okay, got it, check. And I have the talent that I can go purchase properties better and different than all people. And so I do that differently. And I probably have some tips at the end for anyone that's able to get to the end of how I do that. But I crush it with the offers.
Okay.
And one of the things that happened is I leveled up. Okay. And compared to buying existing properties and converting, which took a long time, about 12 months, 18, I said, I'm going to buy a existing portfolio, cash flowing. And I found one. I had an agent call me and go, Brandon, dude, this thing's just like you, man. Check this out. And when I dug into it, I'm like, yeah, dude, this is a great package. So I made an offer. And SBA financing was hot last year, dude. I honestly thought that it was too good to be true.
Yeah.
Because it was like 90%. So I have this portfolio, 7 homes. Okay. And so at this time, our average bed was about $5,500 per month. And I thought I was good because I think down in Florida, they're like 4. But I found a portfolio that the average bed they charged each month was $8,000 a month. I mean, so I was here. These guys were like up here. They've been doing it for 10 years. So they were just further down the road. They were dialed in. Well, the owner was older and had some health issues. Okay. So Ryan, finance guy, bro, I bought it at a 14% cap rate.
Okay. Nice.
Now, all of you guys that are hearing this in the audience, you're like, what? 14%? Because you probably bought in your fund, family office, all the things, you were probably buying at a 3 or a 4 this year, right? That's crazy, by the way. But I had this thing under contract for a 14% cap rate. It was $12.5 million. And had I been thinking, I would have had other plans, but the SBA sounded so good, dude. I had it under contract, our purchase contract, 6 months, right? We felt really, really good. The connection was great. And I'm just like, so I'm going to go from 5 houses to like 12 overnight. And it was just beautiful. Well, I got a phone call one day, Ryan, and the SBA broker said, Brandon, the federal government doesn't have the cash right now, so I need an extra 30 days. I was like, all right, cool. I called the owner and I'm like, hey, man, I want to talk to you on this. I just got a call from the broker. They need an extra 30 days. The conversation prior was really like cozy and things like that. Well, this was different. And one of the things that I was foolish is when I hired the firm to help us buy the property, I have never bought this property before. So I said, do it all properly. Like I gave them the A-OK to like do every check. Well, those guys are like $500 an hour. I had phone calls that there was 4 of them on there and I got bills for $3,000 or $4,000. And I'm like, ooh, but at the time I thought at closing, it was going to pay for that. So I didn't even really think of that. Okay. Well, when I called him to ask for the 30-day extension, the conversation was different, Ryan. And he was like, hey, you got 30 days, man. Click. Hung up on me. Well, turns out he had an offer for $14 million. And he knew.
And what was yours?
12.5. So he had an offer that was like maybe 10 or a 12% cap rate. So I had it at 14. It was a dime, right?
Yep.
And the SBA couldn't go any faster. So I went on a mad dash of bringing in capital. I had brought in $15.2 million previously in 6 months. So I thought I could do it in 30 days. I could do $12 million in 30 days. Well, I must have reeked like desperation because I was hustling I was working 80 hours a week. I was calling everyone. But when you're calling investors and you have that like era about you of like, I need this.
The desperation,
They run. They run. And they're like, hey, man, Brandon, I don't know what's going on. You seem kind of weird. But like, so it failed. And failing's not like a thing that I typically do. But like, I fell right in my face, Ryan. And I didn't get done. So I got her $100,000 back. Well, after I was crying because I didn't get it done, right? I get an invoice in the mail, and I was like pulsing out. Oh boy. Open up the invoice, and it was $125,000 invoice from my attorney. And I said, well, this is a problem. And we proceeded to say, hey, I don't have it. Let's figure out how to pay this. And we paid it each month. But what happened was they all don't go good. But what I learned, and anyone that's able to hear this, please don't do what I did because it was dumb.
Yeah.
But I want you to think of the quote that's able to say something like, you need to dig your well before you need water. Well, I didn't really think that way because I was always so good at the industry was great, going out, finding money, right? Yeah. It was different. And the SBA sounded really good. It sounded too good to be true. Dude, they were offering 90% financing. I only had to put down 10, and we were going to major impact for NOI, for cash flow. It was going to be a huge deal. Well, I didn't have a backup plan, Ryan. And I was like, they are going to take care of it. The SBA is going to take care of it. I counted on them. Well, they needed 30 days. I blew the deal, and I said, man, if I would have just had a fund that I could have bought it and just closed on it for 30 days, just use the fund for this little tiny window, and then take out financing with a bank. Well, fast forward, I had 5 of our properties appraised, and they appraised at a 7.5% cap rate. And to add a bit of insult to it is what I learned is if I buy at a 14% cap rate and you take out financing at an 8, you always win. And then I said, okay, so that 85,000 was a huge kick to the face, but what it did is it forced me to learn what I didn't know at that time. So unfortunately, I'm a person that takes action, and I think that's a really good thing to do, but also you have to be open to things that don't go well. You need to tweak and change. So for anyone in the audience, I would highly encourage that you were able to learn from this and don't do dumb things that I've done. And if you're in, there's so much opportunity. Guys, I can only serve a fraction of the industry, like a tiny percent. So I'm on these calls because I'm trying to help elders, first of all, to teach them that there are other avenues for people to invest. And there's another asset class that people aren't talking on. Man, I feel this is the best asset class that like no one talks on.
Yeah.
Why? It's the best asset class during the 2008 crash.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So on some of your maybe as we round third base and just seek to wrap a few things up, maybe you can walk us through on some of those key takeaways that you found over your career. Like you've been very generous to share some of your experiences here, but let's summarize it. So what are some of maybe 2 or 3 different things that you've learned that you can share with our fans around the world who are entering in this industry, and maybe some of those lessons that will carry over in others?
Well, I would say the top one would be a quote that would tell you to just take action. I mean, everything that you don't do, you are going to 100%, you aren't going to hit because you don't take action. The favorite quote I have is just do it.
Yeah.
That is so simple. Just do it. Take the action. You will figure it out. And I think I've done that over and over. One of the other things that I would tell you too is find a area of expertise and go deep. Yeah. Don't go do everything because then you are just terrible at all. But if you find one that connects to your heart, that you go, if I can help the elderly, if I can help change it for people that don't have anyone else trying to, and A, I can help the elderly, B, I can help ourselves, but then I can change an industry, or I could be part of investing into a company like that has impact. That is purpose. Find that, but then go deep. One of the things I would tell you is like history happens over and over. So it's like every 10, 15 years, they have things that happen, crashes, right? I think this is like November 18th. People are terrified that everything's going to crash right now. Well, guess what? Our past crash was in what, 2008?
Yep.
Fast forward today, people forgot what it taught you, 14 years ago? And it's interesting that if you go back to that, it teaches you what industries is able to do well. And the thing that I think is really powerful is if you're open to that information, you can go back and go, well, if things crash now, what's going to do good? Well, guess what? If you go back to 2008, there's an NIC chart that compares the top cash on cash returns to investors for a period of time, but it compares the top commercial asset classes coast to coast, right? This is some great information because everyone talks about all these different asset classes. And if you look at history and go, what was the top performer from 2005 through 2015? This is a thing that you don't have to hear from me. Pull it up on your own.
Sure.
It tells you that the average investor in our asset class averaged a cash on cash return of over 14%, right?
In the senior living real estate sector?
Yes.
How does that compare to how does that compare to the other
Compared to others, apartments from 2005 through 2015 average 8%. Office, 8%. All these other asset classes that everyone talks on today, they're all gung-ho, and all the people are just bidding up prices on apartments so high that people aren't earning any money. Why aren't we talking? Well, one of the things that I feel is interesting is people aren't talking about it because they think you need 8 figures, 9 figures, 10 figures to get into this industry, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
That isn't true. And if you can take anything from this whole talk, like there's opportunities in your hometown that there are elderly that have to have help. Go do things to help. There's plenty of opportunities.
Yeah.
After this call, you can't tell yourself that you don't have the answer anymore because you do.
Yeah.
Now you just need to go. And all of us are talking on how to go do it. And it's easy. A thing that I didn't tell you earlier that I will tell you is I went to college for 4 years. I took 4 years of just classes because I opened up our first company when I was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. I cleaned cars, boats, and RVs for 14 years. Yeah. If I can build a portfolio that is worth 20 million, 25 million plus in assets today, within 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future, it's going to be 100 million, 200. If I can do it, you don't have any excuse. A thing that's crazy that is on this show is a ton of people that are able to come to the show. They are highly talented people, highly talented. And you guys have gone to college for a long time. And I would argue you've got the exposure to go do tons of things that I probably can't. And if I can do this, man, anyone can. So that's probably a thing that I think is really interesting. But if you're going to invest, look at technology, things that has been able to happen from 2005 through 2015, because that's probably what's going to happen going forward. Yeah. Because I only take care of people that can pay for our service. Yeah. 34% of our country owns their home free and clear, and that's who I take care of. One of the other things is the third and the final thing is anytime that I take when I am looking to purchase properties, right? If I take it more than 10 minutes of any time to go through and talk to the owner, to have any conversation of any quality over 10 minutes, I always put in an offer. Okay. Even if the offer is terrible. So a thing that I do is there is an attorney down in Florida who really changed my perspective. So would anyone here be interested in hearing how you can get 0% interest loans? Anyone?
I certainly would. Yeah, we'll hear the proverbial hands raised around the world to say, debt's a big part of doing business and making billions. Yep. How can you get interest-free loans? How have you done that?
Okay. There's a guy in Florida that I met at the Central Florida Investors Club named Chris. And Chris, if you hear this, bro, I love you, and I'm going to give you some credit here because I didn't come up with this. I am not that, and it's Chris M. It's like MCLATHEY. Great dude. So I love him. He taught me how to do an owner carry offer. And I said, teach me. And he goes, all right, cool. He goes, Brandon, anytime you put in a purchase contract, you include this little term. And the term goes something like this. Let's say a property is, for ease of math, $1.5 million, right? Let's say I talk to the owner, and in the contract, I say, I agree to pay the owner of that property $10,000 per month for 120 months, so that's 10 years.
Yep.
On the 121st payment, the balance of $300,000 is due. Now, if you're in the owner's point of view, you go, hey man, I'm going to get 10 grand a month for 10 years. That's pretty good. Yeah. And then at the 121st payment, I'm going to get $300,000. And if this guy doesn't do 3 payments back to back, I take the property back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
What doesn't that tell you? And now I talked to you last night, so it's unfair. When you do an offer like that, do you hear anything in there that says interest at all?
Nothing.
Chris, this is all you, bro. And I have become the king of buying properties on owner carryback financing with 0% interest most of the time.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what the highest interest I ever paid?
Yeah, I'd love to.
1.5%.
Oh, I don't know how you survive.
Yeah, terrible. Don't feel bad for me. But here's a thing that happened, Ryan. When I opened, banks wouldn't give me financing. They're like, hey, man, cool idea, but I'm not helping you. What the hell's the point of that? Yeah. How do you do what you do and go, hey, cool idea, but I'm not helping you? But that's what they do. They only give you cash when you don't actually need it, which is stupid.
Yeah.
Change that system too. But what I realized is I needed the owner that owned the house to carry back financing. And do you know how a 30-year fixed mortgage is able to work?
Yeah, I know the fundamentals, sure.
Okay. A 30-year fixed mortgage, you only pay interest with the first 15 years. The back 15, it's all principal.
Yeah.
So when I was buying properties, investing, I would purposely look for homes that had 14 years paid on their mortgage. Why? Because I would get a 10-year note and I'd pay down so much principal, it didn't matter. I offered them the full asking price. Do you know how much interest you pay on a $500,000 loan at 5.5% over 30 years?
Yeah, no, not sure.
Okay, well, so you ought to, because if you did, you would think differently.
It's about double, isn't it?
No, dude, it's 3.2 times. That's disgusting.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's $1.5 million. So would you prefer to pay $1.5 million? What if you give them an extra 50 grand? Offer them 550. Ask them, offer them over asking. Is this something that's helpful? Because then you get to choose. Do I pay 550 or 1.5? I mean, I don't think I am that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Price or terms play the game.
That's right.
So anytime you go to any property, I don't care, any property, you put in 2 offers. And if this is probably one of the final things that I can give of value, because man, I can't tell you how thankful I am to have the opportunity just to talk with you, man. Dude, you crush, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Is that anytime you take 10 minutes, even to talk to anyone, put an offer in. And so one offer is the offer that you're hoping that they take, which is the owner carryback offer, because 1.5% interest is pretty hard to beat. The only time you'll have to pay the interest is when their attorney figures out that there are states that you have to pay interest. But if they don't have an attorney to figure that out, I'm not going to tell them.
Right.
That's the first thing. But I always make an offer of all cash. And here's the thing that I would encourage everyone on here to do. When you make the offer, if you don't feel literally uncomfortable, as if you're going to just puke, or just think 10 times, they aren't going to take this offer. There is no chance in hell they're going to take this offer. That tells you that you were able to get close. right?
Yep.
So you put 2 offers. Don't give them 3 because people can't handle 3. That's just too much. Any person that's going to be thoroughly confused doesn't do anything. So don't confuse them. Give them 2, A or B.
Yep.
And all cash. I typically begin at about 33% of the asking price. I want it to hurt because I don't want them to take the offer actually, right? Or an owner carry offer, which is typically full price. But price or terms, pick one. You can't have both.
Right. That's phenomenal.
That's 3.
Yeah,
take action. Do it.
Yep.
Focus on proven asset classes that crush.
Yep.
Just senior living crushes. Call me.
Yep.
Or the price or terms, and I just taught you how to get owner carryback financing.
Man, well, yeah, that's awesome, man. He certainly taught you, and that's the power of relationships, but also specifically having just a good attorney on your team. So as we wrap things up, let's I just want to summarize from your advice, Brandon. He came on, he's very generous with the show. To summarize from his wisdom, find the most profitable corner of your sector and dominate it. Find the areas, in his words, that just crush. Go there and dominate it. The second thing is typically give them their price, but on your terms. And then finally, take the shot. You miss 100% of the shots you never take. And by doing those, you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.